topic of today's discussion will be Gaura Nityananda Mahaprabhu and Sri Nityananda Prabhu. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita of the great book by Kaviraj Goswami, says, Bande Sri Krishna Chaitanya Nityanando Sahodito Gododaye Pushpavanto Chitro Sando Tamo Nudo. Kaviraj Goswami says, I offer my respectful obeisances unto Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Sri Nityananda, who are like the sun and moon. They have arisen simultaneously on the horizon of Gauda, Bengal, to dissipate the darkness of ignorance and thus wonderfully bestow benediction upon all. Then he says, Sri Krishna and Balaram, the personalities of Godhead, who formerly appeared in Vrindavan and were millions of times more effulgent than the sun and the moon, have arisen over the eastern horizon of Gauda Desh, West Bengal, being compassionate for the fallen state of the world. The appearance of Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Prabhu Nityananda has surcharged the world with happiness. You have Gaura Nitai in your temple too. As the sun and the moon drive away darkness by their appearance and reveal the nature of everything, similarly, these two brothers dissipate the darkness of ignorance covering the living beings and enlighten them with knowledge of the absolute truth. The darkness of ignorance is called kaitaba, the way of cheating, which begins with religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. Now just to jump ahead a few verses. All kinds of activities, both auspicious and inauspicious, that are detrimental to the discharge of transcendental loving service to Lord Sri Krishna are actions of the darkness of ignorance. So piety is also considered to be ignorance. Auspicious and inauspicious, both, if they are outside of devotional service, it is considered to be ignorance. The result is never coming to the soul proper. Auspicious work relates to this world, a better birth, maybe going to the heavenly planets, so many things. Inauspicious work, we will suffer, maybe going down to the hellish planets. In either case, they have nothing to do with Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is a field of activity independent of piety and impiety. Therefore, even the drunkard, even a very mischievous person like Jagai and Madai, they may take to Krishna consciousness. Also a very pious person like Ramananda Roy and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, a big Brahmin, they may take to Krishna consciousness. Both the pious and the impious may come to Krishna consciousness. But piety in itself or impiety in itself, that is not the qualification. You must become sinful, then you'll get the mercy of Mahaprabhu. Nor if you become just very pious and very mode of goodness. This does not get the mercy of Mahaprabhu. Devotional service is its own field of activity. Transcendental activity above the three modes of material nature. By the grace of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, this darkness of ignorance is removed and the truth is brought to light. The absolute truth is Sri Krishna, and loving devotion to Sri Krishna, exhibited in pure love, is achieved through congregational chanting of the holy names, which is the essence of all bliss. The sun and the moon dissipate the darkness of the external world and thus reveal external objects like pots and plants or plates. But these two brothers, Sri Nityananda and Sri Chaitanya, dissipate the darkness of the inner core of the heart, and thus they help one to meet two kinds of Bhagavats. Persons or things in relation to the personality of Godhead, the Bhagavats. One of the Bhagavats is the great scripture, Srimad Bhagavatam, and the other is the pure devotee, absorbed in the mellows of loving devotion. Through the actions of these two Bhagavats, the Lord instills the mellows of transcendental loving service into the heart of the living being. So, first, and then it says, and thus the Lord in the heart of his devotee comes under the contrary self. Still we have no awareness of his presence. Therefore in Kali Yuga, to deliver the fallen souls, Kali Kali Namarupe Krishna avatar. Krishna descends as the holy name. Then this holy name, it gets reverberated all over the world in three types. Namaparad, Namabhas, Sudhanam. Three categories of the holy name are there. Having spent a lot of my life in India, I've seen a lot of Namaparad, chanted by particularly the Mayavadis. They also chant Nam Sankirtan. You want to stick cotton in your ears when they chant. It's a horrible sound. It's not that they can't sing, but their whole mood of demand for liberation. I want liberation. And they are shouting the name of Krishna with this demand. It puts bumps, weird bumps on your skin. It's a horrible sound. Then there are others, they're chanting for material enjoyment. Also, there are many bhajan singers in India, Anup this and that, so many bhajan singers. They're praised by the average people who know nothing of real devotion, real transcendental life or love of God. They are praised by those people as being very great bhagats, very great bhagats. But amongst the bhagats, they have no standing. Bhagat means the devotees, who are actually the high devotees. They never listen to those persons chanting. Even there are tapes of them chanting Prabhupada pranams. There are movie stars chanting Prabhupada pranams. So many people there get in on the act and make a CD and chant Prabhupada's pranams, and they don't have even a drop of real love or devotion or respect for Prabhupada. They chant because it is good marketing. So that type of chanting, that is called namabhas. That is the middle stage. That may give some euphoria, some feeling of satisfaction because it separates you from the grossness of the material world. It may even produce liberation, namabhas. But we're not interested in the namaparad or the namabhas. But these two planes of the holy name are out there. We say there is no benefit from namaparad. That's an offense. Namaparad means an offense to the holy name. Namabhas, there is some benefit. Some benefit. But the real benefit comes from Sudhanam. So it is not enough to chant 16 rounds a day. It is not enough to chant 64 rounds a day. It is not enough to chant 24 hours a day or 26 hours a day. It depends on the quality of the chanting. I remember at a time, kirtan took various shapes. From the very rigid orthodox Prabhupada two-step, like this, just waddling from one leg to the other, to the break dance and mash system of kirtan. It's gone a long ways. It's taken many shapes. Well, in the time of Prabhupada, also, kirtan took some vicious turns at times while dancing. And in the course of 1 year, it turned in on itself to the circle dance. Means where all kirtans were performed in a circle. Whether it was a Guru Puja, the Mangalarti, or Sankirtan on the street. And it became a peculiar sight to see on the street in those days when the Hare Krishnas were in a circle looking at each other chanting Hare Krishna, and the people that standing around were wondering what was in the circle, what was all the shouting about. But with our backs to all the people, the kirtan was just wailing on. It took many forms, wild dancing. Then in 1976, a message came down from Prabhupada's room at Mayapur, and the message was clear and precise. Chant as I have taught you in the beginning. Stop all this wild dancing. So that year was a year of reform in kirtan dancing all around the world. Some places were hit devastatingly hard by that. One of those was New Vrindavan. they had developed their own style of kirtan, and very rigorous and ecstatic style of kirtan. Well, when they were reformed back to the simple Prabhupada two-step, then the kirtans, they just weren't as fired up. They were not as ecstatic. So Kirtanananda Maharaj at that time, he wrote Prabhupada a letter. This letter is on file, and he told Prabhupada, since we stopped the rigorous dancing, the kirtans are not as ecstatic. Prabhupada wrote back and said, never mind ecstatic. Just dance as I taught you in the beginning. And it's around that time, well, actually it was a little before, and Chaitanya Charitamrita was being written a couple years before. He writes and says that a lot of the kirtan is just bile secretion. It's there in Chaitanya Charitamrita. He's not talking about the Mayavadis. He's not talking about the Hindu movie stars. He's talking about us. Of course, that doesn't mean you become an old man when you're only in your 20s and just dance like an old man with a limp. But the fact is that a lot of the exuberance is nothing more than that. Youth, passion, bile secretion, and has nothing to do with real ecstasy. Real ecstasy doesn't come and go like electricity in India. Real ecstasy is like the flow of the Ganga. It comes and stops. I mean, it may go to the hidden quarter in the deep recesses of the heart, but the nishta of that devotee, it doesn't waver anymore. So if you are still wavering in Krishna consciousness, in any way, shape, or form, in your sadhana, in your determination, in your behavior, or anything, you have never reached ecstasy to this day. When you touch upon ecstasy, then you never again go back to the thraldoms of the material world, to be slave away under the modes of material nature. Even you're sick and half dead and dying, you will not be affected, you see. Ecstasy is there. It is possible. But it is not just a matter of exuberance. So in that particular situation, Prabhupada wanted everyone to be a little more reserved in chanting the holy name. Give your attention to the holy name. I mean, I have seen break dancing in kirtans before. In those days, I gave my danda. I would strike out with my danda against those fellows. That's why I started my own temple, so I could get away from the break dancers. No offense to anyone, but yeah, it was pretty wild. But anyway, the point there was that I don't know how we got to that stage, but Lord Nityananda that's right. Oh, yes, that's what it was. So the holy name, what is being said here is the holy name brings us in touch with two types of Bhagavats. The book Bhagavat and the person Bhagavat. And from these two is where we draw the ideal of a God-conscious life. The holy name will just go out there. It's out there. It goes everywhere. I once arrived in Sudan. I thought, at last, I've reached that turf. We arrived there in 74, myself and, Ajamil from Australia. And I thought, at last, we've reached the end of the earth. We're going to take the holy name where the holy name has never been before. And we were anticipating a great mercy from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for our endeavors. And when we got the baggage claim, this guy from the other side threw our bags on the thing and said, Hare Krishna. So that was auspicious. The holy name was there to welcome us. We soon learned that Oxford Street in England was the key Sankirtan party to spread the holy name all over the world. Because people from all over the world come to Oxford Street, more than Manhattan, actually, particularly in those days, the heart of the British Empire. All the British colonies, they all easily go to Britain. You have to struggle to get to this country. They all, from hundreds of countries, they can go to Britain. So these people had contacted the holy name on Oxford Street, even in Sudan, in the depths of Africa. So the holy name goes everywhere. But there is a result in that, and that those who are fortunate, the holy name, it is said here, the holy name will bring them in touch with two types of Bhagavats, the book Bhagavat and the person Bhagavat, the Srimad Bhagavatam and the pure devotee of Krishna. From these two, the ideal of a God-conscious life is derived from them. not just independent with the holy name. The holy name is independent, but we are the lacking recipients. You see, it's just like, how much Ganga water can you catch? At Hrishikesh, at Hardwar, at any way along. You want to take Ganga on your head, how much you can take? The Ganga is just flowing by at any second. Millions of liters of Ganga is just passing by. We have a limited capacity. Lord Shiva, he has got capacity to take the whole thing on his head and sustain that. But we don't have that capacity. We have a limited capacity. So in touch with the Bhagavatam, in touch with the devotee Bhagavatam, the Lord's pure devotees, then we can derive some capacity to progress in spiritual life. We can develop then the real capacity to chant the holy name of Krishna. Independent of these two, we just go on chanting either Namabhas or Namaparad or toggling back and forth between the two. You see. Sometimes it's found that people, they go on to the point they start initiating themselves. This is not a new thing. This is an old thing. It's been going on for centuries. They be convinced that they're chanting the holy name or chanting their mantras, and that then they're independent of the necessity of guru and guidance and all these things. And sometimes they're found to then give themselves more mantras, give themselves spiritual names, even give themselves sannyas. So many things go on. But the defect is that all that what you are doing from your side, this is called, excuse me, this is the objective approach. Objective. You are asserting, but we cannot assert ourselves in that realm. We can assert ourselves in this world phenomenally. We can push our thing on another individual, on a community of individuals, on a nation of individuals, or a continent of individuals. We cannot push anything into that world. That is a subjective world. Objective world is we are rigorously doing and we're acquiring by our own endeavor. But we cannot get any status in that world by such a movement. So we may take up the chanting of the holy name, but we cannot move towards the purity of the holy name. We cannot chant the holy name purely unless we receive guidance. We receive association, and that is from these two Bhagavats. Like Arjuna. Do you know the story of Mahabharata? He had incredible armor. Could he put it on himself? No. If he put on his armor himself and picked his Gandiva up himself, it had no potency. Even his great Gandiva and all the armor that he wore, you could have taken him out with a pea shooter. It had no efficacy whatsoever. He had to be armored for battle and given the Gandiva. And that is shown in once he was in hiding. He was hiding as a eunuch in the court, and he had to go fight. And the armor was wrapped in a tree, and he had some prince. He said, well, I'll try the fight, but I don't know, how do you put this stuff on? So he got the prince to put on his armor, because if he put it on himself, it had no power. So if you take up the process of chanting Hare Krishna and remain independent and don't come into Krishna's ashraya, don't take shelter properly under Guru and Vaishnava, then you are like Arjuna picking up that armor on his own, and it will not have the desired effect. You cannot give yourself a Gayatri mantra. You cannot do all these things yourself. Ideally, the missionary life is that when you have clothes, you should offer first to Krishna, the spiritual life. We used to do that in the beginning of Prabhupada's movement. We used to buy big rolls of cloth in Denver for dhotis and saris and offer to Jagannath. It will sit on his altar one afternoon, then devotees will have that. Bhaktivinoda Thakur also did like that. The cloth that he wore, he offered to Jagannath. The pots that he cooked out of were only Jagannath's. Only eating Krishna prasadam. The system is, if you give up Gayatri, if you give up your Gayatri, you can't just start chanting it again. It's gone. You gave it up. It's like letting go of a basket in the Ganga. You let go of it. There it goes. You can run after it for a time. And Jiva Goswami says you've got 100 days to get it back together. Otherwise, you lose the right. Lose the right means you lose the potency. It's not there. It's just not a sound vibration. You have to retake initiation if you do that. And their story is there in Chaitanya Charitamrita. It is actually Gadadhar Pandit who had to take reinitiation. It's mentioned that when his guru, Pundarik Vijayanidhi, came to Ratha Yatra, he gave him initiation for the second time. The original translation used to say he gave him second initiation. Gadadhar Pandit was already a sannyasi by that time. He's already a Kshetra sannyasi. He got second initiation when he was a kid in Navadvip 20 years before or something. Not 20 years before, actually, but he got initiation from Pundarik Vijayanidhi some years before, maybe 5 years before, actually. But his sanskara initiation he got long back. But anyway, what happened was, and it's mentioned in Chaitanya Bhagavat, he gave initiation to Balabhacharya. Balabhacharya forced him, more or less. And so he gave his mantra to Balabhacharya. This seemingly had the, the authority of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If you read it, seemingly Gadadhar had the permission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It is said that Balabhacharya took sannyas and received the Gopal mantra and other mantras from Gadadhar Pandit. Then suddenly Gadadhar Pandit, after some time, found that he had no potency in his mantras. Gadadhar Pandit is one of the members of the Panchatattva. He is the incarnation of Radharani. And he found, I have no potency in these mantras. No potency means the mind wanders like a hurricane while chanting the mantras. You can't remember the mantra after you've chanted it. In a conversation with another Brahmin, you can't even remember what mantras you chant. All these types of things, falling asleep while you chant your Gayatri. This is all a symptom of no potency in the mantra. Of course, you may have the mantra properly, and the potency is lacking from your side because you're just not attentive. But at any rate, Gadadhar Pandit, he felt the mantras have no potency. And he approached Mahaprabhu and he asked him, explained his situation, and Mahaprabhu said, yes, it's because you gave your mantras to an unqualified person. You gave the mantras to Balabhacharya. He is unfit for this. So then Gadadhar Pandit asked Mahaprabhu for reinitiation. Mahaprabhu told him, no, your guru, Pundarik Vijayanidhi, he's coming soon from Bengal. He will give you the mantras again. He will give you the initiation again. It will not look good. It is not appropriate that I should give you those mantras. Your guru is there. He's coming. So it's mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita that all the devotees arrived, and it says, and Pundarik gave initiation to Gadadhar Pandit for the second time. So he lost the potency. You can lose the potency of the holy name or your Gayatris for a number of things. Giving up your Gayatri and not chanting it for a long time and doing prohibited activities, that cancels out the connection. You have to be reconnected. Just like, what if you pull the plug on the light? You're disconnected, you see. Well, it's like this. If you don't pay your bill, then you can do all the switch flicking you want, but it doesn't work. You have to satisfy the higher-ups, and they reconnect you. In India or something, that's a big problem. If you get disconnected, it's not a phone call. It's days of work and bakshish, and finally you get reconnected, right? So if we make offense, even our guru is there. If we make offense to our guru, or we make offense to other Vaishnavas, then we may lose the potency of our mantras. We may be a great speaker of the Bhagavatam or any transcendental literature. If we become an offender, suddenly we will start to speak upasiddhanta. Very expertly we will speak upasiddhanta. And the classic example of that is a devotee called Rupa Kaviraj. You have all seen his picture inadvertently. The picture passes off as the picture of Rupa Goswami. The famous picture, the black and white picture of Rupa Goswami, you've seen it? You've seen it? That's a man called Rupa Kaviraj. His name is written on his leg in the picture. It's not Rupa Goswami. That picture appeared in Vrindavan some years after Prabhupada. Somebody had I think it's written in Urdu, and when it said Rupa, he went wild, and it's been all over the world. That's Rupa Goswami. If you go to Vrindavan Research Institute, speak to Dr. Gopal Ghosh, he'll tell you clear as a bell. That's Rupa Kaviraj, a great offender. So, Rupa Kaviraj was a very great devotee at the time, so-called, very learned. that even other great devotees used to come and hear his discourse. But he became overwhelmed by his pride and self-conceit. And one day in the assembly, there was a Vaishnavi. Her name was Krishna Priya Thakurani. And she used to chant while hearing anything. She would chant the holy name. Actually, even in her sleep, she would chant the holy name. So when she was sitting in the back, and she was chanting the holy name very, very, very softly, this Rupa Kaviraj, he took some exception to that. Why are you chanting? He shouted out to that lady. And he embarrassed her. Not that she was embarrassed, but he created some embarrassing situation, and he ridiculed her. Right? Everybody felt very, very bad. Everybody knew the status of this Vaishnavi, and everybody felt very, very bad about that. And the meeting broke up in on a distasteful note. Well, what is recorded in the history books of Vaishnavism, that although he was a great speaker of the Bhagavatam, soon after that, various Upasiddhantas began to appear in his discourses. And he adopted, Upasiddhanta means incorrect or concocted philosophies began to appear. And he began to develop a very disdainful attitude towards many devotees. And at last, he lost his status in Vrindavan completely. And it is said that he was almost to the state of bhava. That sometimes bhava, which is the beginning of ecstasy, would manifest in him. But he was overcome by pride. Overcome by pride. And offending a Vaishnavi, another Vaishnava, then the potency, Punamushika bhava, it left him. Intolerable. The potency of Krishna consciousness cannot remain where aparad is present. It flees. It cannot remain there. It is deathly afraid to remain there. It immediately evaporates from that place. And then the plight of this poor soul, he ended up in Orissa and died of leprosy. But the point we're interested in is that, yes, a result of offense to the Vaishnavas, which is an offense to what? The holy name. It's the leading offense to the holy name. Then the holy name, the Bhagavat, the association of devotees, all these things, they withdraw. So, how do we know if we have Krishna's mercy? How do we know? How does the individual know? And not that you should then go about boasting, or I should go about boasting, but how much we're drawn to these two things. The Bhagavatam and the Bhagavat philosophy, the ideal of the Bhagavat, and the pure devotees of Krishna. How much we are drawn to them, and how much opportunity we have got in either to receive their association in the form of instruction, or to offer them service, or something like this. How much we are drawn into that. That we should take as the measure. And if somehow or another we find ourselves, well, we may be with many devotees, but it may be obvious that those devotees may not be of the higher caliber of devotees, which classify as the Bhagavat devotee. Then we should lament our unfortunate position. And we should pray to Krishna to bring us into the company of his devotees. But maybe those devotees are far, far away, or maybe they're not even available. Then we should take full shelter of the Bhagavatam. But that means that you must be in the line. If you're not in the line, then you can't take full shelter of the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam is a great mystery, and knowledge is its lowest achievement. Knowledge is nothing in face of the real achievement of the Bhagavatam. But we may become very proficient at knowledge by our own endeavor. But we will not get pure devotion to Krishna and love of Krishna through knowledge. Jnana is rejected. That is called Jnana Mishra Bhakti. Devotion which is spirited by knowledge, which is platform as knowledge. Jnana Mishra Bhakti. That is rejected. We must come to what's called Jnana Sunya Bhakti. Devotion purified of even knowledge. Do you know what ultimately devotion is? It is called divine ignorance. That is real devotion. Mother Yasoda loves Krishna, her son, her charming child, her infant boy. That is divine ignorance. Radharani is in love with Krishna, her paramour lover. That is a divine ignorance, yogamaya. Knowledge spoils the whole thing. When knowledge enters, everything gets rigid and falls to the level of Vaikuntha. So, if there is proper chanting of the holy name without offense, it will become namabhas. And then, according to our sincerity, we will come in touch with these things, the Bhagavatam and the devotees. But at any time, if we become offenders, that whole thing goes back. Now, I'll tell you, frankly speaking, in the Vaishnava world, particularly in the Western world, there is a heap of philosophical misunderstanding and confusion, and what is the word to say? Complete wrong idea about many things, many things. And these misunderstandings did not exist in the time of Prabhupada. Maybe a pacific understanding did not exist at all, but the misunderstandings did not exist. They manifested later, after the disappearance of Prabhupada, and almost in every case, you can draw a corollary to offense to a great Vaishnava. That something is said about a Vaishnava, he is criticized in a certain way, and then everybody starts to accept we fell from Vaikuntha as a result of that. That becomes a state doctrine. In no writings of any Acharya from the time of Mahaprabhu to this time can you find any real evidence. And particularly if you approach Prabhupada's books, he says the conclusion is, where is that chapter? Ajamil? The conclusion is, no one ever fell from Vaikuntha. That is the conclusion in Prabhupada's books. But it always goes on to him a Mayavadi and called him envious. And as a result, they then began to take up this doctrine called the fall theory and preach it very widely across this movement. Jai and Vijay, or not Ajamil? Oh, sorry, not Ajamil. Sorry, I missed. Jai and Vijay. Jai and Vijay actually prayed to fall down. They didn't fall down. They were praying to fall down. This story is told in other Puranas also. And Lord Vishnu accommodated their prayers. They saw in Lord Vishnu, he wants to fight. But who can give him battle? There is no demon that can really oppose the Lord. The strongest thing there is next to the Lord is not an asura. It's a devotee. We, gatekeepers of Vaikuntha, we're the strongest thing there is next to the Supreme Lord himself. So only we can satisfy his desire for battle. And they developed a devotional desire to satisfy that Lord's. And now he's walking through Vaikuntha. He's not like the Hulk or something moving around. But they see in him, oh, the Lord wants to do battle, but there's no battle to be fought here in Vaikuntha. And there in that world, there's no match for him, but we could give him battle. Then suddenly these Kumars arrived, and the whole thing flared up, and they scorned those boys, and those boys scorned him. And that is also quite inappropriate for such exalted personalities that the gatekeepers block them. Where's the humility of the four Kumars? That is also gone at that moment. The Lord instills them with anger. Be angry, curse them. And they curse them and become angry. And this is all the arrangement of the Supreme Lord. Not any defect of his devotee. No defect of his devotee. Sometimes it's cited this Krishna Das who traveled with Mahaprabhu in South India. He fell down. He was captured by the Bhattaharis. He was drugged in. Follow the story. Mahaprabhu rejected him and he left and he fainted. Lord Nityananda picked him up. Advaita Acharya picked him up. They sheltered him. They then sent him to live with Mother Sachi. And through him we know what happened in South India. There was a great party in Navadvip on his arrival, and all the devotees came and touched his feet and heard from him about Mahaprabhu in South India. And he lived his days in Navadvip. But to instruct, Mahaprabhu kept him at a distance. And you know what Mahaprabhu did to those people that made him fall down? Have you ever read that story? Who so-called made Krishnadas fall down? Mahaprabhu cut their heads off. He went there to get Krishnadas and he said, oh, you gypsies, you're also sannyasis like me, but why you have my servant? I'll take him now if you don't mind. And they said, we do mind. And they stood up and they drew their swords and they rushed towards Mahaprabhu. This is in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And they raised their swords to chop Mahaprabhu. At that time he grabbed Krishna Das by the hair and said, we're going. And the swords and axes spun out of the hands of the gypsies and just started whacking on him. And Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami says, there were legs, arms, and heads lying all over the place. And the blood flowed like a river. And in the midst of that chaos, Mahaprabhu escaped with his servant. So there's no question of falling down once you achieve the Lord's association. And anybody who would tamper with you, anyone who would tempt you to re-enter the material world again, that would be their fate. Anyway, there are many parts of this story, but no one falls from Vaikuntha, and that is the conclusion of Prabhupada, that is the conclusion of all the acharyas. Then how is it that possibly half the people in this room and hundreds of devotees all over the world, where did this idea come from? It comes from an offense to a pure devotee, to a great devotee. And not only that, other things. Areas of misunderstanding. Shiksha Guru, Gaur Tattva even. Many areas of misunderstanding are there in Krishna consciousness, and mostly these things come from aparad. None of us are immune from this. We should be very careful. We should be cautious when dealing with other Vaishnavas, be they higher or lower. We should be very cautious in our dealings with them. We should try our level best to be very accommodating to all and be sharp to recognize when there is something superior, and we should not just deal with that in a very shotgun type of method. If so, we may do something regrettable in the future. We may do something that is regrettable, quite regrettable. On the other hand, if we do not offend the holy name, the holy name will draw us deeper and deeper into the internal circle of his associates. And in their association, then everything that is desirable for the Lord, desirable that the Lord wants us to know and understand, will become very clear. Very clear. No haze. No abbas. Abbas means haze, some hazy idea. No haze. Very, very clear. One of the scriptures is the Bhagavatam. So one of the Bhagavatats is the Bhagavats is the Bhagavatam. The other are the pure devotees absorbed in the mellows of loving devotion. Through the action of these two Bhagavats, the Lord instills the mellows of transcendental loving service into the heart of a living being. And thus the Lord, in the heart of his devotee, comes under the control of the devotee's love. Krishna is controlled by love, nothing else. Not by our austerities. Brahma, you can call Brahma. Brahma will come to you as your servant and give you whatever you want. If you can be like, say, Hiranyakashipu and live in an anthill and hide the life airs in your bones and let the ants eat away your body and just be inside the anthill and hide in your bones, and even Lord Brahma will come and say what they want. But Krishna's not interested in that. Who's that skinny man in an anthill? Tell him to go to the temple, eat some prasadam. Not so easy to satisfy Krishna by all these external things, but very, very easy to satisfy Krishna with love. Very, very easy to satisfy Krishna. Not only satisfy Krishna, purchase him. Capture him with love. He is captured by love. He becomes a slave of love. And once loving Krishna, he never gives up that love of his devotees. Not possible. Did you hear the story how Madhumangal fell down? Madhumangal, you know who he is? Madhumangal, the cowherd boy. One of Krishna's Brahmin cowherd boyfriends. He always begs ladus. He makes that sound by going like this with his hands. Makes that sound. One day, now I just told you no one falls. Now I'm going to tell you the story how Madhumangal fell. From Goloka Vrindavan, he fell down. One day, Krishna began to torment Madhumangal and not give him any additional ladus. Madhumangal then took this attitude. You have lots of ladus because Your mother dresses you nice. All these other boys, they are enamored by your nice dress, and they give you ladus. If I had your dress, I would also get ladus. You're nothing special, it is your dress. So then Krishna told him, oh, would you like my dress? Yes. He thought, this is my chance. I'll get Krishna's dress, and I'll be off to the village. They'll think I am Krishna. I'll collect ladus from all the ladies in Vrindavan. Yes, I'll take your dress. So they traded off clothing. Madhu Mangal then took off for Vrindavan, and Krishna remained in the forest with his cowherd boys and the cows. Madhu Mangal was on his way to Vrindavan. That same time, Kamsa was sending Denakasura to Vrindavan to kill Krishna. So Denakasura took the posture, the form of a big ass. Was it Denakasura? Denakasura. No, Keshi?
He's the horse.
Keshi, yes, not Denakasura. Keshi. It was Keshi. He took the form of the big horse. And he said, now you go to Vrindavan and you kill Krishna. And he said, well, how will I know? There are many boys there. Yes, you will know. He wears yellow dhoti, he has a turban with a peacock, and he has a flute. So at that moment, the Keshi entered Vrindavan, big horse, charging into Vrindavan to the forest area. There's Madhu Mangal marching towards the village to get his laddu. So he saw him, and he thought, there he is. He charged, did a spin around, and kicked Madhu Mangal on the chest. Now, some say he actually kicked him, some say he missed him, but just the wind just blew him back, and Madhu Mangal fell down on the ground. That is the fall of Madhu Mangal. He picked himself up and ran to where Krishna was, and rubbing his chest and very afraid, he said, no. And he threw it all back at Krishna. I don't want this stuff. You can have this, this is a very dangerous outfit. Then Krishna took his own clothes and then understood that the Keshi had come, and then Krishna went and killed the Keshi demon. Well, that is as close as it gets to a fall down in the spiritual world. They say, someone may say, no, we're envious of Krishna. Now, this is very frank. Krishna is taking breast milk from Mother Yasoda. So what does it mean to be envious of Krishna? Somebody wants to suckle the breast of Mother Yasoda? Is that how you are envious of Krishna? Radharani is kissing Krishna. Krishna is kissing Radharani. A gopi becomes envious of Krishna. What is meaning? She wants to kiss Radharani? What is meaning of envious of Krishna in the spiritual world? It's not possible to become envious of Krishna. Envy is something that only exists in this material world. It has no access, no entrance, no influence. Nobody knows what it is. It is not there. You cannot separate wetness from water. And you cannot, the opposite is, you cannot enter any material quality into the spiritual world. Not even for 1/1,000,000th of a second. It cannot enter there. It is eons of light years away. It cannot enter. And to better understand it, everyone there is like a Prabhupada. Could Prabhupada fall down? No, you would never say. Everyone there is like a Prabhupada. And many are superior. The Astashakis are not superior. Lalita is not superior. Balaram, Madhu Mangal, these are all expansions. There are millions and millions and millions and millions of liberated souls there. Narottam Das Thakur, they're all there. So many, we cannot even imagine a fraction of them. They are there. What is that Prabhupada? Pure devotee of Krishna. To measure each one's love for Krishna and all this, impossible. Only Krishna knows the various mellows of love of his devotees feel for him. You cannot say, I cannot say. Even great experts, they say, don't try to say. Don't try to measure one pure devotee up against another. That attempt to measure will be an offense. If you try to measure how big is Vrindavan, that's an offense. Calculation, don't try to drag calculation to the infinite. The attempt is itself an offense. You cannot measure. And how do you know Prabhupada is a pure devotee? Some of you met him, some of you didn't. In either case, it's the same. Your faith tells you that he is. The highest confirmation of spiritual life is our faith. That is the most powerful thing. It is not a lower thing that just wanders you up to the temple. It is the ultimate thing, not a miracle. A friend of mine wrote me recently, a person that I joined Krishna consciousness with long time ago. I mean, not long time ago, but a long time ago. And he cited me something like a miracle in his house in relation to the holy name. And he's told me several of these, like miracles before, just little mystical things that happened in his house in relation to chanting the holy name. But when I was with Prabhupada, he never told me about any of these mystical happenings. He told me he had faith in his guru. I heard the word faith from him. I spent some time with other great Gaudiya personalities, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, Babaji Maharaj, Krishna Das, Srila Puri Maharaj. I never heard about magical mystery tours. I heard about faith. They have faith in their guru. They have faith in their guru. They're serving their guru. Nothing else is necessary to confirm the reality of Krishna. Some people say, show me God, I want to see him. Show me something, something, something. They want to see something with the eye. They want these senses to perceive something. But even if you show them, then they'll doubt that again later. Well, maybe it really wasn't. They'll doubt it. But when faith is there, what? Doubt is gone. Faith is what confirms the existence of God. Faith is what guides us ultimately in every step of our spiritual life. Shraddha. And that faith, there is a deity of that faith. If you want that faith, you can worship that special deity. That deity is Srimati Radharani. Her name is Shraddha Devi. She is faith personified. And her benevolence appears in the heart of any jiva as Shraddha, the guiding light towards Krishna. Without Srimati Radharani, no one can approach Krishna. Radharani is faith personified, Shraddha Devi. Faith in religion, you believe this, believe that, and believe the other thing in this material world, that's not really Shraddha. That's faith or Shraddha in the modes of material nature. Faith in the mode of goodness, faith in the mode of passion, faith in the mode of ignorance. This is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. But just pure Shraddha, that is like Suddha Shraddha. Or usually it's never said, it's just said Shraddha. And that is different than the faith of this world. And that is what guides us towards Krishna. That is what confirms the presence of Krishna, the existence of Krishna. One time Prabhupada was walking in LA and he said, how do you know Krishna is God? So, some appropriate answers came by devotees. It is there in the revealed scriptures. Prabhupada said, there are many books. Quran is also there. Bible is also there. A few answers were given. He refuted those answers. Prabhupada, then they said, Prabhupada, you have told us there is. Huh? There are so many gurus. He said, so many gurus are saying so many things. Then one day, the devotee said, I know it in my heart. And Prabhupada turned around and said, yes, that is the answer. You know it in your heart. So what does that mean, you know it in your heart? You have some little calculator, some laptop in there, a little chip, knowledge or something. What do you know? Knowledge doesn't go to your heart. No, it's a feeling inside. What is that feeling? That is your Shraddha. We say heart. Means in our very core of our existence, there's a feeling that confirms reality. Now, how to develop that Shraddha, and knowledge is there, so much knowledge. In other words, someone will say, well, what are you speaking? There's some plane of knowledge about something. Yes, but knowledge alone is not the final goal. Knowledge is to help us to achieve a particular refined status. And Shraddha, when it's fully manifested, is called prema. And all along the way, it's called bhava, it's called a shakti, it's called a ruchi, it's called nishta, it's called a nartanivritti, it's called sadhu sangha. In the beginning, it's called shraddha. Ado shraddha sadhu sangha, bhajana kriya, nartanivritti, and the process continues. And prema, who is Prema Devi? Who is the embodiment of prema, love? Again, that is Radharani. So the first investment of love is shraddha. And where do you get it? You can only get it from who's got it. How do you get smallpox? You have to rub up against those contaminated people and you'll get it. How do you get AIDS? You have to contact someone who has AIDS, and then you'll end up with AIDS. So in a similar way, you can only contact this by coming in association with those who have got this. And again, that is possible in two ways. The person Bhagavat and the book Bhagavat. Now, not only the book Bhagavat, Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is also Bhagavat. Say Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is also Bhagavat. Many Bhagavat books are there. What are they about? They're all about the conception of the Bhagavata. But given the two, the book says much about the devotee. Someone will say, I'll just read Prabhupada's books. Well, I said, that's very fine. But what do those books tell you to do? Those books tell you to find the proper association of devotees, and particularly to find a devotee to whom you can surrender to, whom you have faith in that this person knows Krishna and can guide me back to home, back to Godhead. If you haven't come to that, then it doesn't matter where you are, what temple you're in, what job you have, pack your bags and move today, because life's clock is ticking down. And if you don't come to that wholesome shelter in your life, your human form of life is more or less been stalled. Maybe not wasted because you chanted, you did things, you worshiped a deity, you ate prasadam, and so many things. But all that doesn't culminate in that connection, then you can never surrender. Surrender cannot be done just to the object of the deity or the general plane of service, or the Guru's institution even. Srila Puri Maharaj has written that without surrender to the desires of the Guru, simply serving his institution for lifetimes does not produce the desired result. God is not an institution. Institutions are established to help us reach to Him, understand what He is, disseminate that basic knowledge, which is called sambandha, gyan, knowledge of what He is and how to approach Him. That's what institutions are not just for themselves. They are not for that. They have a purpose. So, by the grace of Lord Nityananda and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this Krishna consciousness movement not only came to the Western world, it came to the world. Before that, the world was vacant. Advaitacharya was sitting crying within his bungalow in Navadvip and Shantipur. Haridas Thakur had hidden himself in a mud cave on the bank of the Ganges. Why? Because the world was just rampant with materialism. First-class materialism. They had such a thing going on in Navadvip. They used to marry cats and dogs and have processions and carry them in palanquins. They used to compare any man and any woman as Lakshmi and Narayan. And the Vaishnavas, hard to show their head in the public before the advent of Mahaprabhu. And when he first came, he joined all those rascals to start with. He joined the Nyaya section, the smartas, the logicians. He joined up with all of them, and he became the hero of Navadvip, the greatest wrangler, philosophical, logistical, grammatical professor that they had ever seen. He became the boy wonder of Navadvip, and when he held the whole town in awe and reverence, completely mesmerized, at all that time, on the parallel side, Gadadhar Pandit was praying to Krishna, please convert Mahaprabhu, please convert, actually he wasn't known as Mahaprabhu, he was known as Nimai. Please convert Nimai, because if he becomes a Vaishnava, then we will have a status. Not that he wants status quo, but then we will be able to take your name, then we'll be able to take your message, right? But he watched Mahaprabhu for about 10 years, and he had no interest in Vaishnavism whatsoever. In fact, he sometimes used to ridicule the old Vaishnavas when he was a boy and create all kinds of havoc. And suddenly one day, when visiting Bodh Gaya, he met Ishwara Puri. And in the association of Ishwara Puri, he received the holy name, and he received some special instruction along with the holy name. He received the verse that Madhavinda Puri chanted before he left this world, the prayer that he uttered with his dying breath. Ishwara Puri not just gave the holy name to Mahaprabhu, he gave him this verse also, which is the sum and substance of the Gaudiya conception, Madhurya Ras, Vipralamba Seva, Vipralamba Bhav. He gave that, and he returned to Navadvip a changed man. And the first person he went to see is Gadadhar Pandit. And he praised Gadadhar Pandit, Gadadhar, your life is perfect from your birth. But me, I have wasted so many valuable years. And I have ridiculed devotees. And Mahaprabhu took that status, that position. And then that was the day for Gadadhar Pandit, the happy day. Mahaprabhu became a Vaishnava. So from Mahaprabhu, and then later Nityananda Prabhu came back to Navadvip, and they met, and these two inaugurated this Sankirtan movement. That golden period of Kali Yuga that you sometimes hear about began with their advent. And that book, what is it called? The Brahma-Vaivarta Purana. Not so easy to understand, and it's certainly open for a lot of conjecture. But it mentions the beginning of the dawn of the golden age is actually those who wear Vishnu Tilak and Vishnu Mantra. And that's not us. That's Ramanuja. Ramanuja has Vishnu Mantra and Vishnu Tilak. And then the next stage is Mahaprabhu, the full-fledged son of that 10,000-year period rises with Mahaprabhu. And two things are indicative of Mahaprabhu mentioned there: the Nama, the holy name, and the Bhagavat. Bhagavat Purana and the holy name. These are the two things you don't find in other sampradayas. And if you do, if you go back in history, they didn't exist there some time ago. They've adopted them for the prestige which comes along with the glories of the Bhagavatam and the glories of the holy name. These things come to us by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Like the sun and the moon, this verse says they are rising on the same horizon. They are dispelling the darkness of Kali Yuga. Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Gauranga Sundar ki jai, Shri Nityananda Prabhu ki jai, Shri Nityananda Avadut ki jai, Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. Hare Krishna. Sorry to have taken so much of your time, but thank you all for also creating some auspiciousness for our first program here at the Guardian Sevite Ashram. That means the place where we try to serve our guardians. Our guardians means our masters, our divine masters. Hare Krishna. If there are any questions, I'll gladly spend some time and try to answer any questions, if anyone has. Yes, sir.
I was wondering about the worship of Gadadhar. Does that facilitate and accelerate, let's say, getting to the point of being Madhyam Adhikari or Nuttama Adhikari?
It does, in the sense that once we asked Srila Puri Maharaj, I don't know if you're familiar with that personality, but a very respected Gaudiya personality. We asked him, what is the necessity to worship Gaur Gadadhar? And he said, if you don't worship Gaur Gadadhar, he said, you cannot understand Radha and Krishna. So, the same is true of Gaur Nitai. If you don't worship Gaur Nitai, you can't understand Radha and Krishna. The same is true of Gaur Gadadhar. So initially, what Prabhupada did, is he didn't give the worship of Gaur Nitai. Actually, if you go back in history, if Tripurari Maharaj was here to tell us, you'd find out that he didn't give the worship of Gaur Nitai. The Radha Damodar party did. Prabhupada gave the worship of Panchatattva. Panchatattva was installed. And later, the devotees, because of the Sankirtan Leela and Gaur Nitai being the Sankirtan personalities, the devotees did more to introduce Gaur Nitai, much more. Radha Damodar installed nearly, at one point, almost 100 sets or something, all total. Dozens at a time, Gaur Nitai. And it became much more popular in our movement. But when I first joined in LA, there was a Panchatattva photo. In Denver, there was a Panchatattva photo. Where you find Gaur Nitai, big Gaur Nitai deities in all the temples now, there was a Panchatattva photo. London, Bury Place, all these places, Panchatattva photo. Prabhupada said Panchatattva. In fact, there's one tape, it's like a Radhastami or something. He looks on the altar and he sees the picture is missing or something, and he inquires about it. Some tape is there. Where Panchatattva must be there. So if you're worshipping Panchatattva, actually Gaur Gadadhar is there, Gaur Nityananda is there, Advaita Acharya is there, Srivas Pandit is there. But generally, you don't have, not generally at all, what do we call? Gaur Advaita Acharya. It's Gaur Nityananda or Gaur Gadadhar, you see. But not Mahaprabhu and Advaita Acharya Mahaprabhu and Srinivas Pandit. And the reason is this. in Krishna Leela, and we're just talking about Krishna Lila from a very theoretical point of view. Means it's not our domain. But Balaram is the supreme guru. You have heard. But Balaram is only guru in Vatsalya Ras, Sakya Ras, and Dasi Ras, and Shanta Ras. He is not guru of anybody in Madhurya Ras. The sole guru in Madhurya Ras is Radharani. If you enter in some God-given day, God-blessed day, Madhurya Ras, you will then understand your guru to be a representative of Srimati Radharani. If on another side you enter into Sakya Ras, you will understand your guru to be an expansion of Lord Balaram. According to your approach, you may realize the position of your guru. But he may also have his own position. But as Guru Tattva, as Vaishnavi has his own position, but as Guru Tattva, then you may recognize him in particular either as a representative of Srimati Radharani or a representative of Balaram. Whatever is going on in Vrindavan in all rasas, Vatsalya, Sakya, Dasya, and Shanta, Balaram knows everything. What's going on with the gopis, that's another story. That is not known to Balaram. Balaram never looks Radharani even in the eye. He won't look up past her feet, actually. He never looks her in the eye. Just as Lakshman never looks Sita in the eye. Balaram never looks Radharani in the eye. If he even sees her footprints somewhere on the earth, he turns around and goes the other direction. And even when Balaram is dancing with gopis, he's doing this in the alter ego of Krishna. And they are also pleasing Krishna, and Balaram is there like Krishna's agent, and Balaram's Rasa Leela is performed, but he is completely detached, and he is not the enjoyer of the gopis, but he is offering that to Krishna. Balaram is not the enjoyer of the gopis. Only Krishna Chandra is the enjoyer of the gopis. In Panchatattva, Nityananda Prabhu is Baladev, and he is the supreme Guru Tattva for all the devotees in Vatsalya, Sakya, Dasya, and Shantaras. But it is Gadadhar Pandit who is the Guru principle in Panchatattva for the devotees who have an affinity in the Madhurya Ras. Now some people may say, I thought you were going to say what relation this would have to prospering the Sankirtan movement, so to speak. For some reason I thought you might say that. And it just so happens that after Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for many years, it was the disciples of Gadadhar Pandit and their disciples that propagated the Sankirtan movement all over that part of the world at that time. And the greatest Sankirtan leader immediately after Mahaprabhu was Achyutananda. Achyutananda was the son of Advaita Acharya and a disciple of Gadadhar Pandit, and he became the leading preacher and Sankirtan leader in Mahaprabhu's movement after the disappearance of Gaur Nitai. So if that happened to be the angle of anyone's question, but would this be any kind of divergence from the flow of the Sankirtan? The answer is no, not at all. Rather, it may give one it may propel one in that Sankirtan spirit. It's certainly no deterrent. Who's at Srivasangam? Panchatattva and there's Radha and Krishna or Radha Gopinath. They're not Gaur Gadadhar there. No, not just Panchatattva at Srivasangam. And the question, I'm sorry, the question again was? Question again?
Oh, my question.
Yeah, again what?
About the worship of Gaur Gadadhar, would it facilitate, let's say, advancing to, say, being a Madhyamadikari or Uttamadikari?
Oh, would that particular part advance? Yes, of course, it would. We might say, actually, what will facilitate that more, since we all come from that caste called Jagai and Madai, or most of us do anyway, except for a few pious gentlemen and their families from India, most of us come from the ruggeder section of the material world. And it is the mercy of personalities like Lord Nityananda who are our saving grace, beyond any measure of doubt. But then by the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu, we may make advancement, and within that advancement, we may then have some attraction towards Gadadhar. Otherwise, Gadadhar stands very quietly. There is quite a bit said about him and the glories of his parampara in Chaitanya Charitamrita. But very much, he's very mystical personality. He's very much in the shadow of Mahaprabhu. In fact, it's said that he is the shadow of Mahaprabhu, you see. He is what's left over of Radharani after Krishna steals everything. That pitiful remains, which just follows around behind the master. That is Gadadhar Pandit. But if you analyze, that's the position we seek. To just become that most obedient servant following our master. Following the Supreme Lord and following our master. It is said that categorically, Gadadhar Pandit's love for Mahaprabhu is the greatest of all. In Chaitanya Lila, the greatest love of Mahaprabhu is that of Gadadhar. It excels that of Nityananda, and it excels that of Advaita Acharya and all other devotees. He has the greatest love of Mahaprabhu. But again, we're not measuring who is that greatest devotee, but it is said that Gadadhar, and how can he not be? He's Radha Bhav. He is Radharani. He is the emotion of Srimati Radharani. That most obedient love of Krishna is the person of Gadadhar Pandit. The cantankerous side, that was stolen away. That's gone with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But the obedient side remains behind, and there we find Chaitanya Charitamrita compares Gadadhar Pandit to be Rukmini avatar. Rukmini, very obedient to Krishna. Satyabhama, very feisty. Actually, Satyabhama is Radharani, and Rukmini is Chandravali. But that doesn't mean that Gadadhar is Chandravali. It means, but that obedience is like Rukmini. So he has the greatest love. So if we worship one who has the greatest love of Krishna, we must make advancement in that. You see.
I was just wondering in this line if you could explain a little about the symbolic hand positions of the deities of Gaura Gadadhar. What is the meaning there?
Well, I don't know about all of them. If you look here, like in this one, Gadadhar has his hands like this. In different places, the positions of Gadadhar's hands, I've not seen them all. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Gaura Gadadhar, and they're different. They're not all the same. Mahaprabhu's hand is like this. And Gadadhar's hands are like this. Mahaprabhu is one hand down and one hand like this. This is called Jnana Mudra. This hand is like that. And Gadadhar is like this. So Mahaprabhu is teaching us the mellow of his own devotional service. He is an Acharya Lila. But it is by the grace. It's like, I've seen Balaji in India. Balaji is like this. Sometimes deities are like this. Lakshmi is like this. These different these are gestures of giving grace and admittance. And Gadadhar is like this. He has both hands welcoming the devotees, giving admittance to Mahaprabhu's circle. That is the benediction of Gadadhar Pandit. So there are others, different hands. I think I've seen some hands also up. I can't remember. Or most of the time they're both hands down. Actually, I think Srila Puri Maharaj are both hands down. I don't remember. Champahati. The original Gaura Gadadhar at Champahati. Champahati, right? Jai Dev.
Maharaj, I wonder if you could clarify the apparent contradiction between Vaishnavas. We all know that Srila Prabhupada emphasized in his books on the point of Varnashrama a lot. He spoke a lot about it in his purport. And I was reading just a few days ago in this Bhagavad Dharma book, Srila Puri Maharaj, and he's quoting from a lecture in Vrindavan in 1994. Someone wants to read this, they may feel there was some contradiction in the statement. And this statement is, quote, the Varnashram system has nothing to do with developing love for Krishna.
Yeah.
And someone might read that and, get
Right.
bewildered by that. So how do you reconcile these apparent contradictions between the races?
Well, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Mahaprabhu met Ramananda Roy, he asked Ramananda Roy, please tell me what is the ultimate goal of life and how to achieve it, and give some Shastric reference. The first thing Ramananda Roy said was, by following the Varnashram system, one develops one achieves the perfection of life. Mahaprabhu replied it by saying, but that's external. Please tell me something more. So right after taking sannyas, 1959, Srila Prabhupada wrote an essay. I think that book's laying over there. Yeah, that's the book. He wrote an essay on the conversation of Ramananda Roy and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Srila Prabhupada himself explains that. Varnashram is external. It is an external thing. It is not the dharma of the soul. Varnashram dharma is not the dharma of the soul. Sanatan dharma, that is the dharma of the soul. Sanatan dharma, the eternal occupation of the soul. And Varnashram dharma, well, that's where you are in this world. You are a Brahmana, Vaishya, Kshatriya, Sudra, you're a brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyasi. That's very external. That's a bodily designation. Well, we have these bodies. We better look after these bodies very well, drive properly, take care of yourself hygienically. Otherwise, you get disease, you get killed out there. It's a dangerous place. And then where goes your development? Krishna consciousness then, it's gone. So this body is very important, individually and collectively. So Varnashram is a collective organization for the bodies that we can function as an organic whole and progress in this world. And I sometimes give the example that it's like oil. It's oil. And it keeps your motor running, but it's gas that gets you there. So you got to have that oil. You have to have that lubrication to keep those parts going. But it's the gas that gets you where you're going. At the same time, if the oil falls out, the engine seizes up. So we are socialistic entities. And that social system by which we will live together with the least amount of unrest and confusion and all these things, that is called Varnashram. But as a system within itself, it is not sufficient for spiritual achievement. Rather, it may be, if just left for Varnashram, what dominates is karma kanda. You see, karma kanda dominates in just a system where Varnashram is just the be-all and end-all, karma kanda. And everyone just begins to strive for material improvement, be it in this life or even going to the heavenly planets. But the devotion to Krishna, just like I was reading in Chaitanya Charitamrita earlier today about the Kama Gayatri, and Srila Prabhupada is explaining Kama Deva, this is Krishna, Pushpanaya, this is Krishna, Ananga, this is Krishna, he's explaining all these are Krishna, he says, and then he says, actually this sound has not got anything to do with this material world. That sound of Kama Gayatri. It has no connection to this material world whatsoever. It's a completely transcendental sound to help carry one to the spiritual dimension. It is sprung from the flute of Krishna. So the flute of Krishna is not in the Varnashram system. This bewildered Brahma, what is this boy's caste? And he doesn't even know how to eat. He grabs food in his hands and runs. He's a third-class boy. What does he know? How are they following? He's bewildered. What is Krishna? Which Varna, which ashram does he belong to? There was a story of the gopis. They crossed the river. I don't know the whole story. They crossed the river to see Vishvamrita, one of the yogis. I forget. The first part of the story is equally interesting. Then they had to get back across the river, and they asked the yogi, how should we do there? He said, meditate on Krishna as a brahmachari. And they're like, Krishna is a brahmachari? Krishna's not a brahmachari, he's a debauchee. He's the debauch of Vrindavan. That's what he's called in English, the Old English, debauch. He's a playboy. And they're like, meditate on Krishna. And they meditated him as a brahmachari, and they actually found themselves on the other side of the Jamuna. So what, in there's some high things. I'm not qualified to say the high things, but I know, but part of the meaning is that Krishna is not within the material conception. Even he's a debauch, he is the perfect brahmachari. Brahmachari means one who knows Brahman. And who knows Brahman better than Krishna? He's the para Brahman himself. So Krishna has no material contamination, and so it is actually not controversial. I also, it's just like underclothing actually. Underclothing, that is Varnashram. We not judge your appearance by your underclothing. We judge your appearance by your shirt, your tie, and everything. But underclothing is a part of clothing, you see. So Varnashram gives a certain support to us in this world. It provides a certain necessity, but it does not reach to the eternal world. For that, we have to go beyond. We have to look to other platforms. And in that discussion with Ramananda Roy, they go through all the platforms. And lastly, they arrive at the conclusion that the residents of Vrindavan are the topmost devotees, and to follow in their footsteps leads to the highest perfection of life. The residents of Vrindavan. And amongst the residents of Vrindavan, the gopis, and amongst the gopis, Srimati Radharani. Now, if you want to follow a gopi, if you want to follow Srimati Radharani and all these very high things, then you have to learn self-sacrifice and selflessness, no selfishness, to the nth degree that there's not a particle of envy, greed, lust, selfishness, separatism in even one atom of your existence. You have to learn that. And when every atom of your existence is devoted and in the mood of self-sacrifice for the pleasure of Krishna, then you're following in the footsteps of the gopis. Not that you think that you're a gopi. That is not following in the footsteps of the gopis. How does a householder follow the 6 Goswamis? By living a life free from sense enjoyment. That's how. Don't live in the griha like a medha and become like a mudha and become a griha medi. No, you live in the griha following the ideal of the 6 Goswamis. You become a grihasta. And serving Krishna, you're not assembled there to enjoy each other's sweet voices and soft touch of the baby's skin and all this stuff. This is not the grihasta life. You are gathered there to serve Krishna. So even a householder can follow the 6 Goswamis. Everyone can follow the 6 Goswamis. And to follow the gopis, particularly, you must follow the 6 Goswamis. There's no question of just going to this point without going through so many points along the way. Therefore, we are Rupa Nugas. We are the followers of Sri Rupa and the 6 Goswamis. Prabhupada came to this country singing Sad Goswami Astakam. That was a song which he sang so frequently. And drawing back to Vrindavan, where he took everybody. Where he took everybody? He took everybody to the Samadhi of Rupa Goswami. And by the Samadhi of Rupa Goswami in 1972, he gave the Nectar of Devotion discourses at the Samadhi of Rupa Goswami. Also his chosen place of bhajan and so forth. He lived there for many years during his work, inspired by Sri Rupa. So, Prabhupada wanted to see Varnashram as a role model for people in society. Like, how does this all work? If all you people just out the door with your bead bags every which direction, and well, how's society? Society wants to know, what's the benefit for society? How does this work? If we all become like you, what happens? Prabhupada said, there'll be no more hippies. But that question was always there. What if we all become like you? What will happen? So he wanted role models. If you all become devotees of the Supreme Lord, the world would become a very happy place to live in. There'll be no more race consciousness. There'll be no more country consciousness. If you're an American, I wouldn't suggest going on holiday in Serbia right now. Or Afghanistan. You might be in deep, deep trouble over there. Even Pakistan, or I can name a whole bunch of places. Indonesia, not a recommended travel destination, right? But I know Indonesian devotees. I know devotees from different countries. Those countries hate America. I know so many Serbian devotees. America bombed the hell out of those people a few years ago. There's hardcore. Some people lost their children. Some people lost their husbands, wives, and all. There's some hardcore hatred in there. But it doesn't exist amongst devotees. Devotees transcend that, you see. So in Krishna consciousness, Srila Prabhupada wanted us to show an example. Cow protection and stabilize society. But ideally, he said, I want you all to be Brahmins. You see. I want you all, even you're doing administration, that's Kshatriya, still I want you to be Brahmin. And more than that, I want you to be Vaishnavas. A Vaishnava can accept any position in the Varnashram system, if necessary. Any position. Because he's above that. He's not actually in that. He's just holding a post for the benefit of others. If you have love of Krishna, you don't even have to chant your rounds. Actually. You don't have to. You do. You like to chant Hare Krishna if you have love of Krishna. But you're not bound by any rule or any regulation whatsoever. Who has love of Krishna is not bound by any rule. We sadhaks, us practicing devotees, we depend on those rules a lot. We stay away from the holy name, we start feeling the chilly winds of Maya blowing around our necks. Not a very safe thing. But those who have love of Krishna, when you're up and over the hill, you're up and over the hill. You don't have to worry about sliding back down. But what, you'll give up the holy name and simply lay around and sleep late? No. You'll chant the holy name more than any of the practicing devotees. You will never want to give up the holy name. But the fact is that we come, and it's said actually, you enter Vrindavan, you can't find the holy name being chanted. Not like you know it here. If you enter Navadvip, you can. If you go to Chaitanya Lila, Mahamantra is being chanted like anything. But if you go to Krishna Lila, it's different. It's different. The holy name goes in the background. It's like the backdrop of the Lila. You know what happened when Gopakumar went back to Godhead? One famous devotee, he reached Vrindavan one day in his eternal quest. He was actually ascended to eternal Vrindavan. And he entered Vrindavan, and in the pastimes it was something like 4 or 5-ish in the afternoon. And he entered the eternal pastimes of the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. And he entered Vrindavan, and he couldn't quite understand where he was. He thought, this is Vrindavan, this is the land of my Lord, my eternal cowherd boy, my Lord. He worshipped Krishna always as an eternal cowherd. So he ran to one gentleman. He told, Sir, where is the house of Krishna? Of course, he must be speaking Brajabas. In Vrindavan, that's what they speak, Brajabasi. That man turned on him and scorned him. Be off, you fool! Don't bother me with your stupidity. And he just walked off, and he was like, oh, maybe this isn't Vrindavan either. The guy was really uptight. That's the way he expressed it. He saw another man, he approached him, the same thing. The man just gave him a tongue lashing, told him, be off, don't bother me. And just walked away, and he thought, well, this couldn't be Vrindavan. These people are in anxiety like anything. This place is completely stressed out. And then he saw one old lady. He thought, let me try one more time. The ladies are usually a lot kinder. And he just humbly approached this lady and asked, Madam, where is the house of Krishna? That lady looked at him like, what you are, the supreme fool? And then she just said, it's there. And he just looked off the end of her hand, and there was Nanda Baba's palace just standing there. And he realized he is in the eternal Vrindavan. Suddenly everybody came running out of buildings and coming down from rooftops and brushing him by and running to the side of the town. He just caught up in this. Everybody's running and everyone's over here, and they're all looking, and suddenly they get a little life in their face. These people were looking like this. They were looking like death personified. He said, I've never seen more miserable people in my life. He's in Vrindavan. He has entered in and has come in contact with the Vatsalya Rasis. And they have been in the absence of Krishna all day. They are hanging on the thread of death personified. Krishna has been out in the forest all day. They cannot bear another second or moment of separation from Krishna. And as the boys are coming from the village with the cows, they start to get the color in their cheeks and the life, and they become full of life and fully joyful. And then the story that he's looking. Suddenly he sees Krishna with his flute, dancing with his boys coming out of the cloud of dust. Where's that picture? That boy starts to run towards Krishna. It's on the cover of the small little book too. Yeah, that's it. He starts to run towards Krishna, and Krishna sees Gopakumar, and they run towards each other, and in the midst of the whole thing, Krishna embraces this boy, Gopakumar. And upon embracing, they both faint and fall down unconscious. And everybody runs there, and this boy is dressed like a human. His clothes are human. Everybody else is dressed in chintamani cut cloth and jewelries, and everybody is completely astounded and bewildered and very upset. And people are saying, who is this? Who is this? What has he done? Why has Krishna fainted? They don't see things like this every day. Krishna has become unconscious. And he's laying there in that state, but Lord Balaram comes and he understands. Then, I forget what Balaram does. He tells, first he wakes Gopakumar. He whispers something in his ear and he wakes Gopakumar. Then he has Gopakumar massage Krishna's feet, and slowly Krishna wakes up. Then they go home. He's back home. But he doesn't know where to go. So he goes to Krishna's house. Mother Yasoda serves a nice dinner to Krishna. And Gopakumar, he gets invitation, a few other cowherd boys to sit and have some prasad with Krishna. And at a point, Krishna eats a sweet and goes, "Ugh!" and he spits it out. And he goes, "Ugh, this is horrible." And everybody goes, "Oh my gosh." And then Krishna picks up this one more of the same sweet and he goes, "Here, see how you like it." And he pushes it in Gopakumar's mouth, and it's like the ambrosial nectar of all nectars. It's a sweet that Radharani has made, right? And then Krishna is laughing, and slowly, well, probably pretty quickly, Gopakumar is brought into the bhav of Vrindavan. He's really kind of ratty in his dress. He's been a roaming mendicant in the earth for a long time. So then Krishna gives him his own turban, says, "Now you look a little better, you need a little jewelry." He just gives him a few things, and he's transformed to his eternal cowherd boy swarup. Then everybody breaks up after that. The cowherd boys go to leave. Gopakumar writes, "Then Krishna assigned me," I think maybe he went with, I forget, Subal. You go with Subal. So, you know how boys and girls are always staying over with each other from families. Boys stay over with another family. And so there's a lot of this staying over going on in Vrindavan. So they all stay over at Subal's, and he said, all night, nobody sleeps. We all lay there in our room, and there's some talk amongst some of the boys about what Krishna is doing, but no one's quite sure, and it's not very clear. But anyway, we all stay there until the break of day, and with the first peep of light, he said, we are out the door and headed for the cow barn and over to Krishna's house, and the day of the Vatsalyas begins. But in the night belongs to the Madhuryas. The day may be more belonging to Vatsalyas and the Sakyas and so many things. So, what were we telling that one for? I forget. Anyway, it's getting late. Hare Krishna. Gauranga Mahaprabhu ki jai. Shri Gaur Gadadhar ki jai. Go Premanande Hari Hari Bo.